Today, we are diving deep into, well, a really fascinating automotive paradox, the Mazda EZ-6. It's this new high-tech electric sedan, right?
That's the one.
And it's causing a bit of an international stir, you could say, maybe even a scandal because the price tag for what seems to be the exact same car,
Hmm.
it just completely changes depending on where you buy it.
Fundamentally changes, yeah.
So, our mission today, we've got this stack of sources, detailed specs, dealer pricing info, market analysis, and we want to understand two key things. First, okay, what actually is this car? What makes it so cutting edge?
Hmm.
And second, how on earth can the starting price in Europe for the 6E, as it's called there, be more than double what people are paying in China for the EZ6? We really need to unpack this staggering difference.
Yeah, it's not just like a small gap we're talking about. It feels like a structural pricing shockwave.
Yeah.
And this car, it's a really crucial play for Mazda in the whole electrification game. It came out of their joint venture with Chang'an.
We're at the Chang'an Mazda venture.
Exactly. And it packs an immense amount of technology into, well, a really aggressive price bracket, or at least domestically, in China. So when that price just doesn't translate internationally, it makes you ask some pretty tough questions about, global car economics.
Absolutely. Okay, let's start with the basics, the hardware. What does the EZ6 or the 6E actually look like? Is it some little city runabout or something more substantial?
Oh, it's definitely substantial. This is a proper D-segment mid-size car. It's got this very sleek five-door, five-seat fastback shape. And it's built on Chang'an's EPA platform, their electric platform architecture.
EPA hybrid platform, okay.
Yeah, which is important because that's what lets it handle both the pure battery electric setup and the range extender version, which we'll definitely get into later.
So how big are we talking when you say substantial? Give us some perspective.
Well, dimensionally, it's pretty large. It's nearly 4.92 meters long, so, quite lengthy, plus 1.9 meters wide. And crucially, it has this really long wheelbase, 2.895 meters.
Wow, that's long.
It is. And that usually translates to really good interior space for passengers. It puts it squarely in competition, size-wise, with cars like, say, the Tesla Model 3 or maybe the BMW i4.
Okay. And does it still look like a Mazda aesthetically?
Visually.
Right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It definitely carries that signature Mazda Kodo design language. Looks very dynamic, very fluid. You've got details like the split headlights, the LED daytime running lights, even an illuminated Mazda logo, which looks pretty modern.
Mm-hmm.
And what I quite like is there's some functional design touches, too. That fastback shape includes a little ducktail spoiler that actually pops up automatically above 90 kilometers per hour for, better aerodynamics and stability.
Ah, okay. So function mixed with the form. They didn't just focus on looks.
Right.
Okay, so they didn't sacrifice the design. Now, speaking of tech, the interior reports suggest this is where there's a massive leap compared to maybe older Mazdas. What's going on inside the cabin?
Yeah, the cabin is, it's basically a showcase of Chinese domestic tech integrated into that Japanese design feel. You climb in, and you're immediately faced with this huge 14.6-inch infotainment screen, plus a digital instrument cluster, of course.
Standard stuff these days, almost.
Kind of, but then the real headline grabber is the AR heads-up display. It's a 50-inch projection.
50 inches. Projected onto the windscreen. That sounds, well, it sounds amazing, but maybe a bit distracting. How does an AR HUD like that actually help without just overwhelming you?
Well, that's the key, isn't it? It's augmented reality, so it's not just showing your speed floating there. It dynamically overlays things like navigation arrows directly onto the road ahead as you see it, or can highlight hazards that the L2.5 driver assistance systems pick up.
Ah, okay. So it puts the info right where you need it.
Exactly. It makes complex information feel more intuitive so you can keep your eyes on the road. And the courses say this is all powered by a Qualcomm Snapdragon 8155 chip, so it should be pretty fast and responsive.
Right, the chip powering the software makes sense. What about the luxury touches? Does it actually feel premium inside?
It seems like it does. The spec lists mention things like a premium 14-speaker Sony audio system, which is nice, 64-color ambient lighting, and even, get this, zero-gravity reclining front seats.
Zero gravity seats. Wow, okay.
Yeah, those are serious comfort features, real luxury cues, which actually raises an interesting question, doesn't it? Zero-gravity seats, fancy Sony sound. That sounds expensive. Is this car trying to be two things at once? A luxury cruiser and an aggressive, low-cost volume seller.
That dual identity you just mentioned perfectly sets up where we need to go next. Let's shift from the nice seats to the powertrain, because the options here get complicated, even before we hit the price problem. Let's focus first on China, the EZ-6, where you can get it as a pure EV, or that range extender, the EREV.
Correct. So for the Chinese EZ-6, if you go for the battery electric vehicle, the BEV, there are two options, but both share the same rear motor. It's a pure electric motor, putting out 258 horsepower, 190 kilowatts, and 320 newton meters of torque. Pretty punchy.
And the batteries?
The batteries are from CATL, using LFP chemistry, lithium iron phosphate, which is pretty common now for balancing cost and performance. And they mentioned something called Kiji battery technology, part of CATL's tech.
Okay, LFP. Makes sense. What about the range difference between those two BEV options in China?
Right, so the standard range version gets a 56.1 kilowatt-hour battery. That gives it a claimed range of 480 kilometers. The long-range version bumps that up to 68.8 kilowatt-hours for a claimed 600 kilometers.
Okay, 600 kilometers. But those are CLTC figures, right? Let's pause there. For listeners diving deep with us, CLTC, that's the Chinese test cycle. Why is that important to note?
It's really important because the CLTC cycle is generally known for being, let's say, a bit more optimistic, less demanding than the WLTP standard used in Europe or the EPA standard in the US. So that 600-kilometer CLTC range will likely translate to a noticeably shorter real-world range, or WLTP range. It's just crucial context when we compare it to the European specs later on.
Got it. Good clarification. Now, that Chinese fast charging capability you mentioned, the numbers sound genuinely game-changing.
They really do. The sources we looked at show these Chinese BEV versions can charge from 30% up to 80% in just 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
15 minutes. That's proper ultra-fast charging. It really cuts down on waiting time. And then, of course, there's the other option only in China, the EREV, the extended range electric vehicle.
Right, the one that basically eliminates range anxiety altogether.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It uses a small 1.5-liter gasoline engine, but importantly, that engine only acts as a generator. It doesn't drive the wheels directly. It just makes electricity for the 160-kilowatt electric motor.
Ah, okay. Series hybrid setup.
Exactly. And that combination gives it a massive maximum claimed range of up to 3,301 kilometers.
Yeah.
That blend of, electric for daily driving and the gasoline generator for long trips is super appealing to many buyers, and it's something European customers just don't get with this car.
Okay, so now let's pivot to Europe. The 6E version, it's BEV only, no ERDV option. And this is where things get, well, a bit weird with the tech specs, as you pointed out earlier.
Yeah, this part is truly bizarre. So the European 6E also comes in two BEV flavors. The standard model actually uses the larger 68.8 kilowatt-hour battery from the Chinese long-range version. In Europe, this gives a WLTP range of 279 miles, which is about 479 kilometers.
Okay, that range seems reasonable, converting from CLTC to WLTP. What about charging for that one?
This version supports a pretty strong 200 kilowatt peak DC charging speed. So 10% to 80% takes around 22 minutes. It's actually quite good. Competitive.
22 minutes. Okay, respectable. But what happens if you decide you want more range in Europe and you pay extra for the long-range version?
All right, this is the strange part. You get a slightly bigger battery, 80 kilowatt hours, which pushes the WLTP range up to 343 miles or 552 kilometers. So you gain range, which is good.
Right.
But inexplicably, the peak DC charging speed is capped much lower at only 95 kilowatts.
95, down from 200.
Yeah, which means your charge time from 10 to 80% almost doubles. It goes up to about 45 minutes.
Hold on, so you pay more for the bigger battery and longer range, but you get significantly slower charging. That sounds like they're actively penalizing the long-range buyer in Europe. Why on earth would a manufacturer do that? Who is that standard spec aimed at then?
It's really counterintuitive, isn't it? It almost suggests that maybe this standard 68.8 kilowatt version is positioned for convenience, focusing on people who prioritize quick top-ups at chargers over having the absolute maximum possible range between stops. The trade-off is just so stark, though. You gain, about 60-odd miles of range with the bigger battery, but you lose over 20 minutes every time you do a decent charge on a long trip. It forces European buyers into this weird calculation of convenience versus range that most rivals just don't impose. It's a very, very unusual compromise.
A definite point of friction, you'd think, for potential buyers over there. Okay, now let's finally pivot to the main event here. Section 3, the colossal price difference. The price chasm, as we called it in the outline. Let's start with China. Just how aggressive is the pricing for the EZ-6 domestically?
Oh, it's designed to completely shake up the market. In China, across all 7 different models that includes the BEV and EREV versions, the price range starts at a stunning 139,800 yuan.
Yeah.
And it only goes up to 181,800 yuan for the top spec.
Okay, let's put that into perspective for everyone.
Yeah.
Using the exchange rates from our sources, that starting price, 139,800 yuan, is roughly 19,200 US dollars. $19,000.
Yeah.
And the absolute top of the line model is only about $25,500 USD. That's just astonishing for a car this size with a 50-inch AR heads-up display and L2.5 autonomy.
It absolutely is. It positions the EZ-6 as a real bargain, clearly targeting high-volume sales. We even saw one dealer quote an FOB price. That's the price before shipping and taxes of just $23,049. Now, contract that extreme affordability with the price tag when this same basic car, rebranded as the 6E, lands in, say, Germany.
Okay, hit us with it. What's the German starting price?
The entry-level 6E, the Takumi Creme, starts at 44,900 euros.
44,900 euros.
Okay.
Converting that, it's roughly 49,000 US dollars. That's more than double the starting price in China. And the higher Tatumi Plus trim, the one with Napa leather and
That's even higher, 46,900, or about $51,200 USD. The math is just brutal. If you compare the starting price in China to the starting price in Europe, the European customer is paying 2.17 times more. 2.17 for what is essentially the same underlying platform and core technology, even allowing for, mandatory safety gear or compliance tweaks for Europe.
This just crystallizes the core question of this whole deep dive, doesn't it? Is that massive premium purely down to things like import tariffs, VAT, shipping costs, and meeting European regulations? Or is Mazda taking an absolutely enormous margin in Europe, perhaps trying to position the brand as more premium over there?
Look, it almost certainly has to be a combination of factors, right? Taxes like VAT are high in Europe, shipping isn't free, and meeting regulations adds cost, no doubt about it. But the sheer size of that gap, more than double, strongly suggests there's more going on. Either Mazda and Changan are indeed maximizing the margin they can get in Europe, maybe trying to elevate the brand image, or the flip side is the Chinese price is being heavily subsidized or reflects incredibly aggressive cost-cutting to grab domestic market share at almost any cost.
And yet, even at that 44,900 starting price, the 6E in Europe is still priced, well, kind of strategically below some key rivals, which tells you something about how expensive the competition is there. The Tesla Model 3 starts a bit lower, just under 40K, but the desirable versions climb much higher, and something like a BMW i4 eDrive 40 starts way up near 60,600 bro.
Precisely. So even with that huge markup compared to China, the 6E is priced to sort of squeeze into that premium middle ground in Europe, while at the same time back home, it's this incredibly affordable market disruptor. It's a fascinating dual market strategy, and it really tells you everything about the current global battle for EV dominance.
That dual personality seems to be working, at least on the home front, which brings us nicely into Section 4. How has the EZ-6 actually performed since it launched in China?
Extremely well by all accounts. It launched late in October, and by November, so just its first full month really, it had already sold 2,445 units. The reports say the joint venture factory in Nanjing is really ramping up production to meet demand.
2,500 units in the first month.
Yeah, which apparently put it straight into the top 3 best-selling midsize new energy sedans in China within the joint venture category. So the market there instantly validated that aggressive low price point. They like the car and the price.
Okay, so they're building them efficiently, selling them quickly in China, if they're achieving that kind of volume. Let's look briefly at the export logistics. Does the actual cost of just moving the car physically justify such a huge price jump?
Well, the logistics information we found suggests a pretty slick and professional export operation. Companies handling this, like the one mentioned, Audro in China, have clear processes. They require full payment upfront, usually via TT remittance, and they support various currencies. And the whole process from getting the payment to finishing export procedures takes, maybe 3 to 6 working days. Pretty quick.
Okay, customs cleared in under a week. And the actual journey overseas?
That obviously varies depending on the destination. But the key thing here is the options and the speed. Yes, sea transport takes the usual 15 to 45 days, but land transport using those China-Europe freight trains is becoming increasingly common, and it's remarkably fast. Like 10 days to get a car to Kazakhstan, or maybe 18 days all the way to Moscow.
18 days by train to Moscow.
Yeah. The availability of these rapid land routes just shows how industrialized and efficient this export infrastructure is becoming.
So if the manufacturing seems efficient enough to hit that low price in China, and the logistics are actually quite fast and optimized, we kind of come full circle back to the price gap, don't we? The sheer cost of moving the car doesn't seem like it could possibly justify a 2.17 times markup in Europe. Exactly. It
Mhm.
really reinforces the argument that this massive price difference isn't just about shipping containers in import forms. It has to be fundamentally a strategic decision. It represents a huge difference in how they perceive the value or perhaps the profit potential in the two markets. Or maybe it reflects a really long-term strategy focused on absolutely dominating the Chinese domestic market first, even if it means selling at much lower margins there.
Which brings us neatly to our final takeaway. We've established the Mazda EZ-6, or 6E, is, well, it's a visually striking car. It's packed with high-tech features like that huge AR HUD. It offers potentially ultra-fast charging, at least in some configurations.
Hmm.
And it's a verified success story in its home market, built on an almost unbelievable sub-$20,000 starting price.
And then globally, or at least in Europe, we see that price inflate by more than double. That core tension is that stunning 2.17 times price difference. And it shows us two really important things, I think. First, China can now produce and sell highly competitive, very technology-forward electric vehicles at price points that were previously unthinkable.
And second, the traditional global automotive market, especially in established regions like Europe, is still structured in a way that layers on enormous costs, whether that's through taxes, compliance burdens, complex distribution, or simply higher margin expectations from manufacturers and dealers.
Which leaves us with the ultimate provocative question for you, the listener, to think about. Given the clear capabilities and the aggressive domestic pricing of cars like the EZ-6, are we witnessing the start of a fundamental, long-term challenge to the way cars are priced globally? Is this a glimpse of a new normal where high-tech cars are just orders of magnitude cheaper at the source? Or is this just a temporary market distortion, maybe fueled by subsidies or unique market conditions in China that won't last? That is definitely something worth pondering as you watch the future of the global EV race unfold. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive, hopefully a clear and thorough look at the Mazda EZ66E, its specs, and that frankly staggering market disparity. We really appreciate you spending your time with us today.
Indeed.
And we certainly hope you'll follow the channel so you don't miss our next exploration. Thanks again.